The architecture of the inner world. A meditation on the forces that shape you. Sit quietly, not to escape the world, but to encounter it where it truly begins, within. You believe you are thinking. But have you ever questioned what is thinking through you? There are layers to your mind. What you call I is only the surface. Beneath it move older currents, inherited instincts, unexamined fears, forgotten wounds, ancestral archetypes, biological drives, social conditioning, ambition, resentment, longing. The ancients understood something modern people often resist. You are not fully transparent to yourself, and yet your life unfolds according to what remains unseen. The hidden architecture. Carl Jung warned that what remains unconscious governs us. We call it fate, we call it luck, we call it circumstance. But often it is the shadow. The shadow is not evil, it is simply everything you have refused to acknowledge. Your envy, your craving for approval, your hunger for recognition, your suppressed aggression, your fear of insignificance. Whatever the ego rejects does not disappear. It waits. It waits in projection. When you condemn in others what lives unrecognized in yourself, it waits in emotional reactions. When your anger far exceeds the moment, it waits in repeated patterns. When you find yourself living the same story with different characters. To confront the shadow is to remove the mask of innocence. This is the beginning of power. The uncomfortable realism of human nature. Machiavelli observed people not as they wished to appear, but as they behaved when threatened, ambitious, afraid. Humans are not primarily rational creatures. We are creatures of survival and desire who invent rational explanations afterward. Notice how often your reasons follow your impulses. You decide emotionally. Then you justify intellectually. You say you value fairness, but only when it benefits you. You claim loyalty until a better opportunity appears. You speak of principle until status is at stake. This is not cynicism, it is clarity. When you see your own self-interest honestly, you stop being ruled by it unconsciously. The one who believes himself purely virtuous is the easiest to manipulate. The one who knows his ambition can direct it. Power begins with self-recognition, the will beneath thought. Schopenhauer described a blind force beneath consciousness, the will. Not willpower, but an endless striving embedded in existence itself. Desire gives birth to movement. Movement gives birth to action. Action gives birth to temporary satisfaction. Satisfaction dissolves into new desire. Observe your day. How much of it is driven by restlessness? You want achievement, then security, then admiration, then love, then reassurance, then distraction. The mind tells stories about meaning. But beneath the story is a pulse, more. And when desire is blocked, frustration arises. When it is fulfilled, boredom arises. So the will moves again. You are not wrong for having desire, but you suffer when you mistake it for identity. When you can watch desire without immediately obeying it, something changes. Space appears between impulse and action. In that space, freedom grows, the revaluation of your beliefs. Nietzsche pushed further. He asked, what if your moral beliefs are not eternal truths, but strategies born from psychological need? What if your humility masks fear of competition? What if your kindness masks a need to be needed? What if your outrage masks envy? What if your righteousness masks insecurity? He saw that humans often invert weakness into virtue. This is not an accusation, it is an invitation. When you trace a belief back to its emotional root, you reclaim authorship. Instead of inheriting values unconsciously, you begin to create them consciously. Self-overcoming is not self-denial, it is self-transcendence. You do not destroy your drives, you transform them. Ambition becomes excellence, aggression becomes courage. Sensitivity becomes perception, loneliness becomes independence. You become sculptor instead of stone. Perception as creator of experience. The Stoics introduced a practical dimension. They agreed that external events are unstable and uncontrollable. But they insisted something remains yours: judgment. An insult occurs. Is it harmful, or merely sound waves? A setback occurs. Is it catastrophe or training? A delay occurs. Is it injustice, or an opportunity for patience? Between event and emotion lies interpretation. Most people collapse the two. The Stoics separates them. If you examine your thoughts carefully, you will see how quickly meaning attaches itself to experience. You do not merely see a neutral world, you evaluate it constantly, and these evaluations create your emotional climate. When you discipline interpretation, you discipline suffering, not by denying feeling, but by examining its source. Is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, release. This simple division reorganizes the mind. The illusion of the stable self. You think you are a single, consistent entity, but you are a chorus. A part of you seeks comfort. A part seeks challenge. A part seeks love. A part seeks dominance. A part seeks safety. A part seeks risk. Jung would say these are complexes and archetypal energies. Schopenhauer would call them expressions of will. Nietzsche would see drives competing for dominance. The Stoics would call them impressions requiring examination. Notice how your identity shifts in different contexts. With friends, you are one person. At work, another. Alone at night, another still. The self is more fluid than it appears. Transformation begins when you observe these shifts without clinging to one mask. Who are you without the role? Who are you without the approval? Who are you without the fear? These questions destabilize. That is their purpose. Projection, the mirror principle. Look carefully at those who provoke strong reactions in you. The arrogant colleague, the overly confident rival, the fragile friend, the manipulative leader. What do they awaken? Jung would say that intense emotional reactions often reveal projections. You condemn arrogance, yet secretly long for boldness. You despise weakness, yet fear your own vulnerability. You resent power, yet crave influence. Projection is the psyche's way of externalizing what it cannot yet integrate. When you withdraw projection, you reclaim energy. Instead of attacking the world, you begin integrating yourself. This is painful. It feels like losing certainty. But what you lose in simplicity, you gain in depth. The discipline of ruthless honesty. Machiavelli demands you drop sentimental illusions about yourself. If you want security, admit it. If you want admiration, admit it. If you want influence, admit it. Hidden ambition becomes corruption. Acknowledged ambition becomes strategy. Similarly, Nietzsche demands intellectual honesty. Ask yourself, if no one were watching, would I still act this way? If there were no reward, would I still believe this? If I were not afraid, would I choose differently? These questions cut through layers of performance. They reveal motive, and motive shapes destiny. Suffering as teacher. Schopenhauer believed life inevitably contains suffering because desire never rests. The Stoics agreed that difficulty is inevitable, but they reframed it. Obstacle becomes training, loss becomes perspective, insult becomes endurance practice. Delay becomes discipline. Your response determines whether suffering degrades or strengthens you. When something painful occurs, ask, what faculty of mine is this testing? Patience, courage, humility, detachment. If you see hardship as sculptor, not executioner, your posture changes. You stop asking, why me? You ask, what is this shaping? Integration, the birth of agency. When shadow is acknowledged, when desire is observed, when motive is examined, when perception is disciplined, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting automatically. You begin choosing deliberately. The gap between stimulus and response widens. In that widening lies freedom, not the fantasy of total control, but the dignity of conscious participation. You cannot eliminate instinct, but you can integrate it. You cannot erase desire, but you can guide it. You cannot control events, but you can govern interpretation. This is inner sovereignty. The continuous practice. Transformation is not a single revelation, it is a repeated return. Daily ask, what moved me today, fear or intention? What did I avoid seeing? Where did I project? What belief did I assume without examination? What was in my control? What was not? Write it, reflect on it. Observe patterns. Over months, you will see recurring themes, recurring emotional triggers, recurring ambitions, recurring anxieties. Patterns reveal architecture, and architecture can be redesigned. The final movement. You will never become perfectly transparent to yourself. The unconscious does not disappear. The will does not die. Desire does not end. Events do not stop. But awareness changes your relationship to them. You move from being carried by currents to navigating them. From being driven by impulse to directing it. From mistaking thought for truth to examining it. From blaming fate to recognizing pattern. You do not become pure light. You become integrated shadow and light. Whole. And wholeness carries a quiet strength, not loud, not fragile, not dependent on applause, just steady. The philosophers differ in tone, some fierce, some austere, some compassionate, but together they whisper the same truth. Look inward without flinching, see clearly without ornament, accept complexity without denial, discipline perception, transform desire, create meaning consciously. And in doing so, you participate in the shaping of your reality, not as victim, not as illusionist, but as aware creator within limits. Sit with that and begin again tomorrow.